This is Flick.
This is Rudy.
And this week we're looking ahead to celebrating St. Patrick's Day. We're doing Irish playlists. For me, it's bands totally from Ireland. Rudy went a little bit outside the box.
That's the nice way of saying it. I may have not be able to find Ireland on a map, apparently, but I promise some good music either way. We have some new music to talk about. We have the Record Store Day list is announced, and you, Mr. Flick, went to see the Black Lips. So we're going to talk Ireland, some new music, some RSD, and some Black Lips coming up next.
And that's next.
All right, here's one you may well know, you may not know it, and if you don't know it, I really don't know where you've been.
You forgot? Forgot the magnetism of Robin Zander or the charisma of Rick Nielsen?
That's kid stuff.
It's just come up to 5:35 a.m. Kommen Sie bitte und listen to Kraftwerk.
I don't know, man. I kind of like Van Halen.
Well, yeah, Plum, you do. And you know why you do? Because corporate America is shoving something down your throat and making you believe it because that's what they want you to believe. I mean...
Okay, buddy. I was just trying to cheer us up, so go ahead. Put on some old sad bastard music, see if I care.
That was Big Yellow Taxi by Joni Mitchell, a song in which Joni complains that they paved Paradise to put up a parking lot. A measure which actually would have alleviated traffic congestion on the outskirts of Paradise, something which Joni singularly fails to point out, perhaps because it doesn't quite fit in with her blinkered view of the world. Nevertheless, nice song.
How about the tunes? I want you to want me. The Dream Police. Da-na-na-na-na-na-na. Your mama's alright. Your daddy's alright.
I get by because the people make a special effort to shop here. Mostly young men who spend all their time looking for deleted Smith singles and original, not re-released underline Frank Zappa albums.
Yes. I mean, look, you can play an E pentatonic scale at 100 miles an hour till somebody's ears burn off. You can learn that, right? But finding the tangents within the framework, therein lies the artistry, man.
God made your ears. You didn't make them. You gonna argue with God's ears? If it sound good and it feel good, then it's musical. So play it like I say play it. From the top.
That was Sweating Lunatic Iggy Pop, part of our Tuesday night punk pack, which is climaxing at midnight with Madness. This is Norfolk Nights with Alan Partridge, and we're in the middle of Super Talk. Super Talk!
All right, we have a busy week this week. We do want to get caught up on new music. We haven't spent a ton of time on new music. I'm not sure we'll spend a ton on it today either, but we're definitely going to get into it. You saw the Black Lips. We definitely want to talk about that. And Record Store Day 2020 releases are have been posted. Those are the three sort of warm-ups, and then we have a big theme this week. Do we not, Mr. Flick?
Yeah, we're so St. Patrick's Day is coming up, so we're going to have playlists of bands from Ireland that we like, songs from Irish bands that we like, and we we haven't shared any of our picks with each other, so there may be some crossover. We'll get through it.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about that myself. We'll take it up as we go. All right, let's jump into new music a little bit. You and I think both have the same problem, which is we have a very long list of things that are new-ish that we want to get caught up on and talk about. It's hard to find enough time to do all of that, but from my nerd point of view, a couple of big, like hardcore, almost Mount Rushmore level favorites of mine have new music out. Magnetic Fields, The Close Lobsters, and Sonic Boom of Spacemen 3 and Spectrum. Throwing Muses has new music. There's more even than that. Some great reissues. There's a new Hani El Khatib record that's pretty good. New Gorillas, pretty good. So it's getting to be a very, very full season. I don't have like super heavy details on all of it, other than everything from my Holy of Holies, the big bands for me, the Magnetic Fields, the Close Lobsters, and Sonic Boom in particular. All that stuff has been really, really good. Way better than I thought. The Sonic Boom stuff is probably the weakest of the bunch. I don't expect anybody to care but me, to be honest. Sonic Boom is and Spaceman 3 and the drone music is never been a never been a huge subgenre. Although Sonic Boom did do an album with Jim Dickinson from Big Stars Orbit. I can't remember what he did. Jim Dickinson. Am I crazy? Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. Not only Jim Dickinson, the Big Star producer, who also produced The Replacements, Pleased to Meet Me.
Yeah. He did Jim Dickinson and Sonic Boom did an album together like 10 years ago that was interesting. I mean, everything Sonic Boom does is interesting. So for me, happy times on the new music front, although I still have like a ton of things to listen to. Like, even like I would love to have talk about the Throwing Muses stuff too. I find myself going back to the Throwing Muses catalog quite often. And Kristen Hirsch, I don't necessarily know the difference between her solo stuff and Throwing Muses at this point, but I like all of it anyway. So this is shaping up 2020 to be a good music year so far, at least for me.
Yeah, and so the funny thing about the new releases this week, both of us have listened to a few new things, and none of them are the same thing. So we might have to come back to it next week, because then we'll at least have things in common that we both listened to. I did add a few things to the rotation list on Spotify, our Spotify page, LOTD pod, or Left of the Dial pod on Spotify. I added a new song by Hamilton Lighthouser called Isabella. Gift Horse by Kevin Morby. These are all singles that came out. And Lucinda Williams has a new single out called You Can't Rule Me, which I liked. Probably my favorite of the three, possibly. Really good bluesy song, and like an up-tempo bluesy song, shuffle sort of thing that sounds very much, like normally a blues band doesn't really sound as strong in the studio as they do live. And this has like a live feel to it, but I assume it was done in the studio. And that's a really good tune there called You Can't Roll Me.
I threw some new Jaw Wobble in. I took your recommendation. I gave the new Real Estate record another listen. I'll admit it's not as bad as I thought, but I do feel like I don't know if this represents any like big. I wasn't necessarily looking for much from them anyway. Most of their records I think sound good because they sound the same.
Exactly. They haven't done anything before. Well, I would say their first two releases are my favorite. Atlas is my overall favorite, and kind of post Atlas, I'm not as much of a fan. But the new one, the thing about the new one is I like it more than I thought I was going to as well. But that was because I really didn't like the first single that came out from it. I really didn't like it. Mm-hmm. But the rest of the album does not sound like that. So I'm happy to say that.
All right. Well, our ears are going to need to be busy here in the next coming weeks. The next thing I want to hop to is you went to see Black Lips. This is not your first Black Lips show. I've seen them before as well. You saw them. Can I assume you saw them at home, or did you travel?
I saw them at home. It was a home show, a home court advantage.
Nice.
And it was great. The one thing about it, and I have no idea how things get set up, but it was a Sunday night show. And Sunday night shows, I think pretty much everywhere you go, they always have rules or laws or whatever that those shows have to end early. And the bad thing is, like, the show didn't start until 8:30, and by that I mean like the opener went on at 8:30. And so knowing that, it wasn't going to go very late, it's kind of too bad, because I think the Black Lips took the stage about 9:45, and they played just maybe about an hour. So I wish maybe they would have gone on a little earlier so that they could have played longer, because there wasn't even an encore. But I guess that's also sometimes a thing on Sunday nights too, that you don't see encores because it's a Sunday night show. So you always want an encore, though.
Yeah, and they're good. I mean, I would imagine if they had a head of steam going, had a good show going, having it in early is a double bummer.
Yeah, it is. But it was a good set. Like, they did a really solid set. And in an hour, like, Black Lips songs don't go on very long, and they don't go into long jammy sessions or anything like that. So they did get a good set list in, but it would have been nice for it to maybe go a good 10, 15 minutes longer at any rate.
All right, well, I'm slacking on seeing shows. I'm old and tired, but I'm going to try to do better. There's an Allman Brothers 50-year commemoration show coming to Madison Square Garden.
The way things are going now, seeing shows might become a thing of the past before.
Yeah. Being here in New York, I mean, today I took the train in and out of the city. I think tomorrow we will, but I'll be really surprised if we are by the end of the week. Who knows? It has been interesting, although most people are still going to work. I can tell you that. I can't get a seat. I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
Still that kind of busy. All right, let's talk Record Store Day real quick. And I'm excited every time the list comes out, and I pour through it the second I see that it's available. And this year just made me sort of rethink it a little bit. Like, am I sort of trading on the glories of the past? Like, because early on, Record Store Day, I think, really was fan-driven, store-driven thing. I think it really still had some indie spirit. And I think it kind of got co-opted a little bit. I'm surprised how good it is, actually, given how corporate it has become. But regardless of whether it's better or worse than it used to be, it would be lying if I didn't say I was super excited every time the list came out. I poured through this year's list. I'm not blown away by much here on the list. I'm a big The fan, and there is new music from The coming this year. And they're going to have including a single, I don't know if it's one-sided or two-sided. That's interesting. That I'd wait in line for. There's a Spacemen 3 reissue, speaking of Sonic Boom, of the album. It was like a bonus giveaway called 3B. I remember this is one of those records that I've held in my hand at the record store, like when it was current. And I was like, I don't need this. I don't even know what these songs are. And I just put it back. And of course, if I'd had this incredible record today, I probably could be buy myself a fleet of Winnebagos with it. But it's finally being reissued. It's finally going to be out on a nice vinyl pressing. That's exciting. Mr. Flick, are you a big Space Hog fan? And the album Resident Alien? Because that's coming out. Double vinyl. Record vinyl.
Yeah, so their hit was what? In the Meantime? That was what it's called. Yeah. So I'm not a big Space Hog fan or anything like that, but I not very long ago though I pulled out that song and I was kind of impressed at how good that was and like that was we've talked a little bit about 90s one-hit wonders or whatever.
Yes. They're a great specimen of that species.
Yeah, I think one of the better ones, really, with that song. That was a strong tune.
Yeah, but it also, I'll put it this way: they really put their all into that one, and by that I mean pretty much every idea I think they came up with worth listening to more than once happened to be put in one song. It's very convenient in that regard.
That's good because I think that's the only song I've ever heard by them.
There is a reissue of the New Order John Peel sessions from 1982. It has a great version of 586 on it, I think it is, which at the time I don't think had been put on anything else. And then they have a cover of, so apparently Ian Curtis was a big reggae fan and he loved Keith Hudson. And he loved the Keith Hudson record, Turn the Heater On. So there's a New Order covered Turn the Heater On. I might go dig up the original. They literally do like a Joy Division arrangement of a Keith Hudson reggae song. Like they really make it. It really has the old Joy Division vibe more than most New Order records. So if you're a big Joy Division fan and you're looking for sort of their last. I think that Elegia I know is about Ian Curtis, and I think that's after this. So it's one of the last times they really referenced Ian Curtis directly like that in their catalog. So if you want to, if you're looking for a reason to buy a New Order record, the John Peel session cover of "Turn the Heater On" is pretty good. It's definitely worth getting just for that.
Yeah, so I haven't really looked over the list too much myself. I'm kind of breezing through it right now. And
you really stopped on that 10-inch orange vinyl pressing of Nazareth's "Love Hurts"?
I wouldn't be opposed to it.
I love that guitar solo. The guitar solo in Nazareth's "Love Hurts" is awesome.
Yeah.
I believe it's on a steel guitar that has no attack. It's like one held note for like 60 seconds. It's great.
Plus, you certainly can't go wrong with that song either.
Wow, I seem to have raised your ire a little bit. Would you be willing to say that I'm messing with the son of a bitch?
No, I wouldn't be willing to.
Okay.
But like I can't. Even though I'm looking at the list and I'm not seeing too much that jumps out at me, I'm sure I could still go and drop $300 or $400 on Record Store Day because that's what I do.
But do you go back and listen to it? When's the last time you pulled out a Record Store Day release, gone out of your way to listen to it?
Oh, well, actually, the Black Friday Record Store Day.
Shit. You're the one guy I should never ask that because you are the one who really would have. All right. I withdraw the question, Your Honor.
Yeah. But, I don't get many chances to sit down with actual vinyl and spend an afternoon listening to vinyl. Because it's something that is more of a time commitment, and I don't often have the kind of time that I need to do it. So, I do end up streaming most of what I listen to these days.
That makes two of us.
Yeah.
Why don't we hop in and talk the meat of the program this week? The meat of the program this week would be corned beef and cabbage, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, the meat would be corned beef. Cabbage would not, but...
You eat corned beef without cabbage?
No, you said the meat of it is corned beef and cabbage, but...
Yeah, that is going to have to suffice. That is the meat of it. We're celebrating St. Patrick's Day this week. I find it bizarre you would even consider discussing the corned beef without the cabbage. But
No. So again, it's semantics. You said the meat of the show is corned beef and cabbage, but cabbage cannot be meat. Right. That's where I was going with that.
Yeah, you and Johnny Cochran's ghost, son. I'm gonna I'll plead guilty.
I want the cabbage.
Nolo contendere to the charges. Happy to move on though.
Okay. I do want the cabbage. I want that along with the corned beef.
We have not gone through each other's list, but we're going to celebrate St. Patrick's Day this week. I have interpreted our mission as Irish music. Not necessarily purely recorded in Ireland or by people who are entirely Irish. Irish music.
Okay, well, my list is so. You're free to do your own interpretation on it, your own take on it. But yeah, I mean, my take on it was yeah, these are bands that are in Ireland, from Ireland. I guess the one exception to it, so I only strayed from it in one way, I guess, on my list, and that is that the Pogues are technically not a band that was from Ireland. They were a band that was in London. So that's more of a technicality. That's the only band that I really strayed from it with, though. It could because I kind of felt like they had to be a part of it.
Well, I did stray elsewhere, and I'm not going to talk about it until we get to it.
Okay. Yeah.
Why don't you go first, sir? I'm happy to defer here because I think we're going to clash early and often. But I will defer.
Yeah. And yeah, I let the cat out of the bag with the Pogues because you had to know the Pogues were going to be on one, if not both, of our lists. So that's out of the bag. But anyway, so I'm going to start my list with a band that I love, and a song that there wasn't any way that, like, to me, I probably make a list like this most St. Patrick's Days. I'm not like the guy who does a lot of bar hopping on St. Patrick's Day. That's not really who I am, but I do kind of enjoy the holiday for things like music and the food and things like that. Not as much the green beer, but anyway. So I'm starting off my list with a band that I totally love, and that's Thin Lizzy from Dublin, Ireland. That is. And Whiskey in the Jar, a song that, it's kind of hard getting around it. Like, really, most lists that I would make for St. Patrick's Day, it's not going to be just one Thin Lizzy song on it. And there are so many to choose from for me, so many songs that I love. And I would like to have multiple chances at Thin Lizzy songs on my list. But for this particular list, I'm just going with the one, and it's Whiskey in the Jar. You kind of, it's just essential. Traditional Irish song that they did their version of in 1972, and it was that was their breakthrough.
You and I have had some back and forth on this song in the last couple of days, and I obviously. As a gesture of my generosity, I did not go first because I would have had to pick this too, just for defensive reasons. But I decided to let you have it because of your attachment to it. But I'm not sure I would. I mean, for me, there's a handful of great Thin Lizzy songs: "Jailbreak," "Boys Are Back in Town," and "Whiskey in the Jar." And beyond that, I got to admit, I don't go all that deep. So.
See, I mean, everything you just said was all on the same album.
Right.
Yeah, so
yeah, that would be the album I would have heard most often. It was everywhere. It still is.
Yeah.
And it is their best. You can't you're going to have that's like a best of the decade. So it's going to be hard for me to process any review that says it's not the best of their career.
Their debut album, I kind of feel like their first album might be better than Jailbreak.
All right, I clearly have missed something. Then I'm going to try it out. I have to go and investigate that because when they're great, they're like great.
Yeah.
But there are people whose devotion to them, I would say, is significantly greater than mine. Maybe I just haven't tried hard enough. I respect your choice.
The second. So obviously Jailbreak. Go to their first album next, and then we'll talk after that. Then it's a little bit more a bit of cherry picking. The self-titled album, the self-titled debut, though, so good.
All right. Well, you're going to see that I've been very generous here, and that I am allowing you a very wide berth to go with that one first. I also know we're going to have some discussion about the undertones later that might get a little heated, but you'll be going first, so we'll see how that goes. I have to step in here and grab Van Morrison right off the bat. I am not a big Van Morrison fan, although I think if you go listen to the version that hit or Van Morrison's vocal with them on Gloria, he sounds feral. Like, that's one of the great all-time rock vocal performances, and it's really nasty, and he's capable of like the real nasty. And I know there's a lot of people who like that about him, like the people who love that Nuggets proto rock stuff, and I respect that totally, but I don't really go too deep into the Them catalog. And then of his solo stuff, I do think Brown Eyed Girl is great, but it's so overplayed. I really have a hard time enjoying it. I was a disc jockey at an oldie station for years, and it really, I lost my ability to enjoy that song. I'm sure it's great. I simply can't listen to it. And I find most of the stuff people like from him, I just don't hear it. But for Astral Weeks, I do. And I have come to realize also that Veed & Fleece is the equal of Astral Weeks, which is a really hard thing for me to say because Astral Weeks is fucking great and almost no one talks about Veed & Fleece. And I owe Sinead O'Connor, who I promise I'll be talking about later, I owe her thanks for, she did a great interview in The Quietus, I believe, again, my favorite publication, in which I believe she was just asked straight up, or it might have been Pitchfork, boo hiss, who just said to her, Veed & Fleece or Astral Weeks, and she picked Veed & Fleece, and I couldn't believe it. So I went and spent time with it, and what do you know? It is the equal. However, no album has anything really as good as Madame George from Astral Weeks. Almost a perfect album. Just an unbelievable gem. I never tire of it. I listen to it all the time, and I find Van Morrison loathsome in general. And so for me to like want to rush up and use my first draft pick to go for Astral Weeks and to be able to own a little of that real estate, that's a hard thing for me. But in this case, it's more than justified about just how great Astral Weeks is. Wanted to get a plug in though for Veed & Fleece because it's really the companion album for Astral Weeks.
Well, I mean, we're not drafting, so
true.
You didn't really have to draft Van Morrison.
That's true.
But I mean, my list just goes in sequence. I'm not going to. It's not really about getting the top pick or anything like that. But
it isn't. But I do get a chance to talk more at length if I go for the artist first. Just buying a little real estate. That's all.
Well, sure, but then again, you can talk as much as you want about Thin Lizzy or any of the bands that I get to first. So Van Morrison, I think, is probably an awful person. All I know is hearsay. I don't have any personal experiences with Van Morrison whatsoever, but I think he probably is a bad person from what I do know. He's kind of an unimpeachable vocalist, though. He has one of the great all-time. He's as far as a vocalist goes, he's as good as I think anybody really. I'm not the biggest Van Morrison fan either. We're probably on equal footing there, but there certainly is no guilt in being rocked by a Van Morrison song. Having your gypsy soul rocked by a Van Morrison song, we'll say.
We won't say that. If we includes me, how about that?
Okay, yeah.
It's you know what, I don't know what the topic is, but at some point we have to discuss bands that we think we might like if we could just get over their fans. Van Morrison is right on the cusp for me there, because to your point, it's not just his fans, it's him.
Yeah.
So the kinds of people who wanted to talk me into Van Morrison are the kinds of people who also who are offended that if I joke about Michael McDonald,
Yeah, actually, to quote Sloan, or I guess to paraphrase Sloan, it's not the band you hate, it's their fans.
There is some truth there. Although, again, I don't want to hate anybody. I generally, if you love music, you can't be all bad. You know what I mean? Like, even if you love it for the wrong reasons, anybody who like has ever loved a band can't be entirely repugnant.
Yeah. That's, I guess that's a whole other discussion.
Wow, man, 2020's rough, ain't it?
Yeah, I know. These are
It's like
dark
just
days.
started, son. It's Q1. We haven't even seen the Q1 numbers, and it's nihilism-inducing. All righty. Well, look, we both give lukewarm reviews to Van Morrison as a human being, which, we're as qualified to do as anyone else. However, I think we're both giving him a little bit up. Who?
Lukewarm might be generous. As a person, as a person, he's kind of a slug, but I think anyway.
But some of the lyrics he wrote are great, and I mean, he's a cringy poser, but there are some things that he got right, and when he's right, like, it's unimpeachable. It's just good. That's it.
Yeah, because the guy can sing.
Yeah,
or could. Maybe he still can. I don't really keep up.
You're up.
All right. Okay. So I made a change to my list. I originally had the Pogues version of this song, but then I decided to change it up because I wanted to have a different Pogues song on my list. Okay. So the song that I'm talking about is "Dirty Old Town," which Ewan MacColl wrote and originally performed, and that is the version that I put on my list in the end at the last moment. And also, so the first part of my list is sort of this traditional music, traditional Irish music. I go from Whiskey in the Jar to Dirty Old Town, because my list kind of goes from one style to another. And anyway, great song, no matter who's doing it. Just fantastic song. I do wonder, I don't know if you've listened to this song and kind of wondered what happens in the song, but it's, it starts out as a love song, and then there's, the protagonist making an axe and chopping someone down like a old dead tree, right?
Yeah.
And who is that? This drives me crazy about this song. I don't know if he like murders the girl that he was in love with or what is happening. Anyway, if you can enlighten me on that.
I don't question Ewan MacColl. And we were before we got started, and I'm sorry to bogart your turn, but the guy really pulled an ace like more times than almost any human being who's ever lived. Because he wrote "Dirty Old Town," he wrote "First Time I Ever Saw Your Face," and he wrote "Ballad of Accounting." Like, almost no one writes one masterpiece. He has multiple masterpieces, and there's no. I mean, and what makes not everything that he did is like Irish. Just it's not a window into the Irish soul or anything. A lot of it is like totally universal, and it's like it's the universalness of it that really makes it stand apart. Not to harsh our own mellow on that one, but like he's writing something very Irish in Dirty Old Town, but it's also again, one of my favorite versions of it is Betty LaVette about Detroit. You know what I mean? She's from Detroit, and drive around Detroit enough, and that song makes sense there too. You know what I mean? Like, Ewan MacColl just fucking knew what he was doing. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, there's something very universal. Well, there's a lot of things very universal about it. But yeah, the thread. There's a thread between my first two songs, not only being traditional Irish songs in style, but also having murders in them, which I don't know. I suppose that is kind of what a lot of traditional Irish songs have. A lot of songs about drinking and murder.
Yeah. I'm going to help clean that image up right now. I realized almost, if you're in America, you're probably Irish, or honorary Irish. Like, American culture has a lot of Irish in it. Like half of, I'm born in Chicago, and like at least half of the Chicago, you have some Irish relations. I never really was all that into being Irish. My first real exposure to it, Irish music, was the song "The Unicorn" by the Irish Rovers, which used to be played during the kids' TV programming on WGN when I was growing up in Chicago. And I can't remember if it was during the Bozo Show when they did little cutaway cartoons or music about animals, or if it was during like Ray Rayner's show, which it was when I was really, really young. But they played "The Unicorn" by the Irish Rovers on kids' TV then, and I made my mom buy it for me. So I have the 7-inch single of the Irish Rovers "Unicorn," and I think I've played it. It might be the record I've listened to most in my life. Now, it's not really Irish in the sense that it's about Noah's Ark and how the unicorn was out playing silly games, and so when they pulled the Ark door shut, they had to leave the unicorns behind because they missed the Ark. It's sung so over the top in like every Irish cliche that you can muster. Like, I know the Irish Rovers really are Irish, but if you were trying to engineer like the American cliche version of Irish music, you couldn't do better than this. So I hope the people of Ireland would gladly claim the Irish Rovers and the Unicorn. It's fantastic. I love it. I've listened to it so many times. I've listened to it all week too, getting ready for this show. And I love "The Unicorn" by the Irish Rovers. And I literally have, I think it's the first record I asked my mom to buy for me. She claims that's "Love the One You're With" by Stephen Stills, because I have the 7-inch of that. But I think this comes before that. Anyway, neither here nor there. If you want to have like all the Irish feels from like the American point of view, you can't do better than "The Unicorn" by the Irish Rovers.
Okay. All right. So it's my turn?
It is.
Okay. All right. So because I changed my Pogue song, the Pogues are next on my list now. And as I said before, technically the Pogues are from London, but they're Irish. So it kind of doesn't make sense to not include them because of a technicality. So they are on my list, of course. And I wasn't sure. So at first I had as my Pogue song, their version of "Dirty Old Town." And I also thought about Sally McLennan, which would have given me a third, like, more traditional type of Irish song. I ended up, I really like "Tuesday Morning." I don't know if most people that like the Pogues like "Tuesday Morning," but it's a song I've always liked. And, I don't know if a Pogues purist really digs that one so much, but I do. So it's on my list.
Well, I'm just going to be a pig again and use your time to talk about my shit, but we've already had a discussion about this, and I'm scandalized. And I even tried baiting you on text on the phone on this, and you wouldn't take it. How can you not pick "Fairy Tale of New York"? It's about being Irish.
Yeah, but it's a Christmas song, and I think I included it on my Christmas list, but I think of it as a Christmas song.
You really? You think it's primarily about Christmas, not primarily about being Irish?
I tend to put it in a Christmas context.
Right. Oh, I won't be having that in this house. So speak your piece on the Pogues, and then I'm gonna have to sit and stew.
Well, you can put it on your list.
I'm worried about doing that because I already talked about it at Christmas time or in our winter song.
Well, why is it on me then?
It's like one of the greatest songs ever written. Of all the songs written in the 20th century that even have a chance of being sung 500 years later, I gotta think Fairy Tale New York of New York is up there.
I'll tell you another thing about it. The biggest factor for me is that I think of it more at Christmas time than I think of it the rest of the year. Also, it's I guess it's kind of there's like the upbeat part of it, right? There's the up-tempo part of it anyway.
Mm-hmm. The waltz, yeah.
But I don't think of it as an upbeat sort of song. And there is kind of like a certain mood to my playlist that it also kind of doesn't fit in that way.
Oh, really?
That's right.
Well. The truth comes out. All right. That's fine.
It's. I don't have anything negative to say about the song.
No, I'm just screwing with you. Look, I'm always. There is no chance that we're going to talk about Irish music for St. Patrick's Day, and you're going to talk about the Pogues, that I'm not going to try to make the case for Fairy Tale of New York. If we do the topic again, I'm going to do it again. If you want to ask about like greatest duets or great, I can warn you now. There's going to be 10 other times I shoehorn this song in. I rep for it that hard because I think it's that good.
Well, I would say that even if it is a great song, you shouldn't reduce a band like the Pogues to that one song.
All right. Then I'm going to pick, I will, since I really was rude and overtook your turn, I will quickly make my Pogues call. I will go with If I Should Fall From Grace with God, which I actually don't know if I would know traditional Irish music if I heard it. Like I would, if it has a penny whistle and a certain like arrangement, and if the person's saying, I might know it, but there's like Celtic music and Druid music and other stuff like that, which to me, I can't always tell the difference. I'm just being honest. So I don't know how faithful If I Should Fall From Grace with God is to Irish music, but damn it, that's what I think of when I think of like the Pogues figured out a way to take a traditional folk music and update it and make it relevant again after like 100 years of being dormant. And it's pretty amazing for that. So I'll pick If I Should Fall From Grace with God, and I'll yield my time to the man from Iowa.
Okay. All right. Okay. So next up on my list, there isn't really. I did say I go from style to style on my playlist. There really is only one shoegazy contribution to this playlist, but it's a significant one. And so I'm transitioning out of the Pogues Tuesday Morning into My Bloody Valentine and from Dublin, by the way, with When You Sleep. That is the next one on my list.
Crap. Well, now I feel stupid because I didn't make the association, and so I don't have a My Bloody Valentine record, and that hurts my soul. And you picked When You Sleep instead of only Shallow or Soon. That's very interesting.
Well, again, there's a certain mood. There's a certain this list is more up tempo, more upbeat. Even the down moments, even the opening songs with the murders in them. Still pretty upbeat, and That's why I went with When You Sleep.
All right. Well, good call. You win, but I'll say I'm not gonna. I would say from the Tremolo EP, I'd pick Swallow, but I didn't. So there you go. Good call, Mr. Flick. I realize it's not a competition, but I'm kicking myself in the ass that I did not remember that one.
We're not drafting.
I know, but you're about to be kicking yourself in your ass because you didn't pick Enya's Orinoco Flow before I got to it.
This is true.
Look, I don't care what anybody thinks. This isn't a guilty pleasure. It's a beautiful record. Enya needed money and rented it to Crystal Light, and that did ruin it, I think, for quite a few people. And that's okay if you can't think of that song without thinking of Crystal Light, and that if having that ruin the song for you, okay, all's forgiven. But Come on. Not only do I own that record, I own it as a cassette single. Top that. Do better than that. I have Orinoco Flow from Enya on a cassette single. I'm proud. If you want to print up a t-shirt that says the person wearing this t-shirt owns the cassette single of Orinoco Flow, I'd wear it anywhere, anytime. If you don't like Orinoco Flow, you don't like beautiful music. There you go.
So once upon a time, here's what some advertising executive said. They were listening to Orinoco Flow, and they said, "Well, you know what else flows? Crystal Light flows."
No, I would guess that, you know what? I'm going to hold my tongue here. The crystals that those ad executives were mulling over, they were leaning over, and it wasn't drink mix. If I had to guess, just not that I would know. All right. Well, look. Now you fouled my Enya. Oh, no, now I've gone and fouled it. I'm proud of Enya, and if you don't like it, you don't like beautiful music. I know I said that already, but it bears repeating.
Yeah, kind of. Not so much my thing. I'll just say that. Not so much for me. Okay, so my next next phase, I guess, of my playlist is punk. Punk has a nice tradition in Ireland. And I'm going to start off this section of my list with Stiff Little Fingers from Belfast, Alternative Ulster from 1978. My side note on this is okay, I got to go back because I'm like blanking on the name right now.
Alternative Ulster?
No, I'm thinking band member names from Stiff Little Fingers because. Okay, so I'm sorry.
It's okay. I believe Stiff Little Fingers are actually still a going concern, are they not?
Yeah, so that's where I was going with this, but I need to get the name. This isn't helping.
Henry Clooney, Jake Burns.
Yeah, Jake Burns.
Okay,
so Jake Burns lives in Chicago now, and I think he might not be the only member of Stiff Little Fingers that lives in Chicago now. He used to frequent a bar that I would go to every now and then, and I didn't realize this until actually the bartender told me that one night, and he gave me that information along with the information that, yeah, he comes here because this is a place where nobody's really going to know who he is. And he, it's kind of his like little getaway place. So, like I hear about this and, and I did see him there a few times after that, but because of the fact that I knew that was the place where he would go because nobody really knew who he was there, I never had the nerve to say anything to him, and I was just always, really wanted to, but didn't want to. One, I didn't want to betray the bartender for giving me that information.
Oh, that's true too.
Yeah, and I didn't want to bother him, but yeah, I always thought that was really cool, though. That he and I were, went to the same bar every now and then.
Something about the Mekons all lived in Chicago too, didn't they?
So yeah, I'm not good with names tonight, but
Sally Timms
did, and John Langford.
Yep.
Yeah, I know both of them did. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a huge Mekons fan. I got to see them. I got to see them at Maxwell's in Hoboken. That was very exciting.
I would like to be able to say that I've seen anything at Maxwell's in Hoboken. I'm envious of that.
Yeah, I saw Robin Hitchcock there too. That was really good. I've seen him a few times, but that show was spectacular. All right, Stiff Little Fingers, Alternative Ulster is your choice?
Mm-hmm.
That I cannot argue with. It was not on my list. I know I'm gonna take a bet here that you're gonna talk about another band, so I'm gonna skip ahead here. I'm going to pick a U2 song. And while it's not my favorite U2 song, it's kind of great because it's really Irish and it's about the modern Irish experience of his time. I picked The Refugee from War. It's just Bono is of a generation and the band is of a generation where they would have had lots of their friends and lots of the people they know leaving Ireland to go to America, trying to get away from what the poverty and the violence of that era. And I think they wrote a pretty wonderful song about it. I mean, it's a little dated. All their early stuff is, and I don't know how kind time is going to be to U2 or Bono. I'm not so sure that they're going to be beloved after Generation X dies. Like, I'm not sure. I think there's a chance U2 is going to die with Generation X. You know what I mean? In terms of people being way into their shit, but they did write some massive songs. They really did. I mean, you can't say they put Ireland on the map musically. They didn't, but boy, they really. It's just not possible to talk about Irishness and music without talking about U2. I picked The Refugee because it's a great Irish story.
Yeah, I would say U2 has a lot to do with why I make playlists on St. Patrick's Day. When I would go to parties, I would hear a lot of U2, but not many other bands that I liked, and so I would try to persuade my way into getting other bands into the mix. Not the biggest U2 fan in the world myself, but I do have a song from them on my list as well. So I will address that when it comes to my song, I guess.
All right, well, it's your song now.
Okay. Well, I don't know if this is the band that you thought I was going to talk about next, but it might well be. So I'm going to stick with punk, stick with 1978. The Undertones from Derry, Northern Ireland with Teenage Kicks.
John Peel's favorite.
Yeah, the song that John Peel liked so much that he played it repeatedly when he first played it on the air.
Yeah, which he did not do often.
Well, yeah, I don't. Yeah, I mean that was I think on his tombstone there are lines from that song.
Oh wow!
I should look that up right now. But another thing I want to mention, there's also a nice little movie about the Undertones and that song Breaking, called Good Vibrations that I watched a few years back, and I think I'm going to try to watch that this year too. But let me check on John Peel's tombstone.
I did not put an Undertone song on my list. You'll know why during my next pick. And I knew that if I tried to get to Teenage Kicks first, I couldn't. So while we're just to fill time here, I want to throw in from their third album, It's Going to Happen by the Undertones. They do this sort of like left-hand white funk thing by the third album that it's present in the first two, but they really did soften up a little bit and expand a little bit. Feargal Sharkey's voice isn't for everybody, but I think he's great. And I think he sounds great on It's Going to Happen by the Undertones from their third record. And I can't remember the name of that album right now, but that's my... It's a close second for me with Teenage Kicks anyway. Although Teenage Kicks is like a once in a generation level of importance, you know.
Yeah,
it's really where British indie comes from.
It's hard for me. I mean, it's hard for me not to go with alternative Ulster. It's hard for me to even like my second or third choice. Even though they're great, second and third choices, it's really hard not to go with the first choice when it's alternative Ulster or Teenage Kicks.
What'd you find?
Okay, so his tombstone says "Teenage Dream So Hard to Beat" from Teenage Kicks.
Not bad.
Yeah. By the way, another thing about John Peel. Here's a sidebar for you.
Yes.
So John Peel also, like myself, is a big Liverpool FC fan, and I think he has three kids, and the middle names for the kids. Two of them have the middle name Anfield, I believe, and the other one is named has the middle name Shankly after Bill Shankly, their manager for one of their great managers. And Anfield is where they play. So that's another interesting John Peel note.
Damn nut. I didn't pick Undertones, but I'm going to pick Undertones related. So when the Undertones broke up, Feargill Sharkey made a solo record that was okay. The song Good Heart, that was okay. But the best work from the ex-Undertones was done by the members that from the Undertones that joined That Petrol Emotion. That Petrol Emotion, every one of their albums was good for at least one excellent single-worthy cut. All the albums didn't go super deep, but you can definitely make a fantastic little mix of their stuff. I'm going to pick the song Big Decision from their album Babel. The Big Decision was played for like every week on 120 Minutes on MTV. I think 120 Minutes played Big Decision by That Petrol Emotion every week for certainly no less than 2 months. Or at least that's how it felt. Like they really, really pushed it. And at first I'm like, oh, this crap again. And then it just wore me down. And eventually, I went out and bought the single, which was awesome because it was a 10-inch record, which at the time I had never had before, other than that one from the Police, the Clark Kent record that I had. But it was really awesome to have a 10-inch record of stuff that was current. So That Petrol Emotion, Big Decision, big guitars, more than I usually go for. I'm not like I don't worship at the Church of the Six String, and I usually don't go for stuff like that. But this album really rams. It's really good stuff, particularly the first single, Big Decision.
All right. All right, my next pick, or my next song, is from last year, and one of my favorite songs from last year by a band making its debut called Fontaines DC. Fontaines DC are from Dublin. Their debut last year was titled Doggerel, and is on Partisan Records. There's a couple of songs that I could have gone with, or like there's the single from the album, or at least the first single from the album, was called Liberty Bell. That's a fantastic song and a banger. But one that I like even better than that is called Boys in the Better Land. I don't know. Super strong rocker. Just a great punk rock song.
I have seen them, although I think I got them from you. From you, all right. I learned it by listening to you. Did you put them on Fontaines DC on a previous playlist of ours?
I probably did.
Yeah, I think that's where I got them. Yeah, I dug it.
Yeah. Yeah, they're really good. I really love that song. I really love Liberty Bell, and it's a really good record overall. Those two songs for me are a little head and shoulders over the rest, but it's thoroughly good.
Yeah, good stuff. Up next, I really loved the Cranberries' first album. I thought it was great. And I thought some of their other stuff, I thought Salvation was great too, but Dreams really did jumped off the radio at the time, so I picked that. And I'm sad that, was it Dolores?
Yeah, Dolores O'Riordan.
Yeah. Very sad that she is gone, because boy, she could sing, and the song Dreams just sounded different than anything else at the time, even though it was sort of during that era when alternative rock really had become very mainstream. And I suppose you could make a case that the Cranberries are like poster children for that. But I think that sells them short a little bit. That was a pretty fresh sounding record in a lot of ways. I think the Ocean Blue maybe around that time was doing stuff similar to that, but they weren't as big as the Cranberries ended up being. I thought the Cranberries also ended up being really good song craftspeople, and I think they really didn't produce a lot of junk. Like, I can't say I loved everything I ever heard by them, but they had the songs and they had the performances. It's pretty. They made world-class music, but I think you could make a case. There's plenty Ireland about it, so it may be a little overplayed at this point. But I picked "Dreams" by the Cranberries from their debut. I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah, I agree, and it's actually the first song where we have crossover. Yeah, there wasn't really going to be another song. It's kind of like the Teenage Kicks thing where there isn't. Although I probably overall I would say I like the Undertones more than the Cranberries. Not that there's anything wrong with the Cranberries, but anyway, what I'm getting at though is that is like a particularly great song, I think. And it's kind of hard to get past it, even if it is overplayed.
Yeah. It was pretty intense.
All right, so should I take my turn even though
Yeah. How many do you have left?
So let me see. I have I have 5 left.
All right, carry on.
Okay. So my next one, kind of keeping, so not staying with punk really per se, but keeping the same sort of feel. Going with the Boomtown Rats from Dublin, from Mondo Bongo, 1981, The Elephant's Graveyard.
Well, we've overlapped again, son. I didn't pick that song, but I did have Boomtown Rats. I picked I Never Loved Eva Brown because it's so fucking good. I'm surprised neither of us went for I Don't Like Mondays. That was certainly the first thing I knew of theirs.
It's a mood thing, but I wanted to keep the mood up, and so I really like the Elephant's Graveyard a lot, and it just fit with what I'm going for on this playlist better.
Yeah. Did you happen to see any of their reunion shows? That I mean, obviously, I didn't go to the UK to see them or anything like that, but there was a whole concert put online, I think, from like a couple of years back. They got together. They could still play. Like, I mean, people think of Bob Geldof as being a sort of celebrity scene type, but the Boomtown Rats were like a real band who really could play. Like, they were real musicians too, I think, to some extent. Maybe not every one of them, but some of that stuff was long hair by punk standards. You know what I mean? Like, it was pretty well written too.
Yeah.
Do you think of them as punk primarily?
I think of them more new wavy.
Yeah. All right. Well, Jim Rome plays Up All Night all the time. I think that's probably the song at this point. If you asked somebody on the street if they recognized any Boomtown Rat song, it would probably be Up All Night, wouldn't it?
Because of what?
Jim Rome.
Who listens to Jim Rome?
Everybody on the CBS radio network or sports radio network. I don't understand.
I guess. I've never, I mean, I guess he's been around forever, so he does have some appeal. I've never understood the appeal of Jim Rome. Never got it.
Well, he does play Up All Night by Boomtown Rats as bumper music. You have to give him credit for that, man.
I guess I would. It's probably not even the first time where I've heard of Jim Rome as having actual decent taste in a few bands, but I don't get it though. There might be something with talk radio I just don't get, because it's hard for me to think of somebody with longevity in talk radio that doesn't seem like an asshole. But what are you gonna do? I guess I don't know.
But that could never end up true of podcasters, though. Thankfully,
Well,
most of your long-running podcasters, that's going to be your cream. That's going to be the creme de la creme.
yeah, I don't know.
Have you ever met anybody who was podcasting in 2008? Ooh, these are interesting people. I kid. All right, I'm going to. I'm not even going to say it. It's so bad. I don't know if this is a controversial pick or not. Whether it is or isn't, I can't really do much about it now. I'm going to take "Jump Around" by the House of Pain. And I feel a little bit icky about it, but not too much so.
Well, it plays well in Madison, Wisconsin.
Well, it's a Boston thing. I think, I don't know what to say. Like, Boston isn't in Ireland, but you can't say that, like, Irish people in Boston don't have a claim to a spot on this list. I just can't make that case. I can't.
There is some kind of Irish connection with members of the band.
No, but if you and I were to go bar hopping in Chicago, let's say, for St. Patrick's Day, what song do you think we would hear most often?
I don't know. I think you might be right about the controversy here. I don't know.
You're not. I will disallow you disallowing it.
I guess you have the authority to do so.
We're co-commissioning here.
They did have somebody in their band named Danny Boy, so I guess that's Irish.
I rest my case, Your Honor.
Irish-ish.
Controversy here at all.
Yeah.
Look, I don't know I hope people from Ireland find their way to this eventually, but if you're Irish and angry that I am celebrating House of Pain Jump Around on St. Patrick's Day, I can understand that, but if you're going to start policing the American celebration of Irishness, you can't make a case that you'd start with the House of Pain. Like, if you're gonna put a big long list together of stuff to quibble about between Ireland and American Irish culture, House of Pain isn't even in the top 10. So I feel comfortable. I'm taking it. Jump Around, House of Pain. And it's a banger to this day. Go listen on your headphones, and then afterward tell me you weren't enjoying it. Come on.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it kind of goes back to it's not the band I hate, it's their fans. It kind of goes back to that a little bit.
Yeah, you couldn't have paid me to go to a House of Pain show during the time when they were current. But to deny this song is to just deny music, and I won't do it.
Well, but it's probably worse, I would say, now than it was when they were current. I just, it's a pretty fratty sort of thing.
All right. I'll have to accept that. I accept that, counselor. But I'm not taking it off the list regardless.
All right. Well, the defense rests then, or the prosecution rests. Okay. Well, my next song is a band that almost made my indie music or indie rock. Actually, I should maybe say maybe they did make my list, but I don't think they did. I think they were like a narrow miss for our indie rock list. The Thrills, who are from Dublin, their album "So Much for the City" in 2003 was one I really liked a lot. I didn't really keep up with them after that, and I kind of, from what I know, they maybe didn't keep up that sort of quality the rest of the way. But that was a pretty good album, and the song that I'm going with is One Horse Town. And I remember actually playing this for you back around that time because it was pretty interesting to me that this band from Dublin made very California sounding music, and it did sound as authentic as any, but if anybody actually from California was doing it, it just sounded perfectly Californian.
Wow. I will have to dig that up. I can't claim to know as much about it as you do.
Yeah. Well, it's on my list, so you can start with this song.
Yes, that is where I'll start. I am going to go next with Black 47.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, and I'm going to take Living in America from them, which is not their biggest hit by any means, and it's actually a bit out of character for them. But I find myself going back to it more than I do their other stuff. So Black 47 is another one of these bands that I think had a better shot if they had come in just a couple years earlier or a couple years later. They sort of got sucked up into the 90s alternative major label vortex, and they got spat out pretty quick. But I remember I was working at the student radio station at the University of Iowa, I think, when they were a thing. And I remember them getting pushed real hard and people going crazy for a couple of their records. But picking Living in America, I think it's, while it's anomalous for them, I think it's a good listen. And it's a great cleanse of the mental palate.
And it's not a James Brown cover?
It is not. It is decidedly not.
Okay. Just wanted to be sure.
No, I understand your fears. But it's not so.
Okay, so this is where I have my U2 song, I guess. U2, of course, from Dublin. Like I said before, I'm not the biggest U2 fan in the world, and a big part of that, I guess, is the fact that they would be like the one rock band, kind of like where the Foo Fighters were the last few years, where it's like they're like what mainstream music looks at as the only rock band that exists right now. Like they'll be on top 40 radio along with music that sounds nothing like them.
Right.
And somehow, it fits, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, like I guess, that's kind of here nor there, I guess. But I even though I'm not the biggest U2 fan in the world, I cannot say that the Joshua Tree is not a fantastic album. It is great. And it was pretty easy for me to go with a song from that. I went with Where the Streets Have No Name. And like you're talking about, how history will look back at U2, and when you listen to a song like this, even though, like I said, I'm not the biggest proponent or anything like that, that album and that song, and other songs on the album definitely deserve their place, because that is excellent work.
Yep. Yeah, I saw them on the Joshua Tree tour, and I would be lying if I didn't say it was one of the best concerts I've ever seen. They also did a very long set of stuff from Unforgettable Fire, which I think is a great album as well. That is, I actually, for me, I don't love anything after Joshua Tree as much as I love the stuff, Joshua Tree and before. I think a lot of their later stuff is crap, and people just won't say it. But boy, when they were good, they were great. They were just great, and they made great B-sides. Very few bands made as good a B-sides as U2 did. Holy moly, did they make good B-sides.
Yeah, and so I guess I'll go back to what I was saying, even though I should have just nailed the landing when I was on it. I think a lot of it is context. A lot of the way I feel about U2 has to do with context. Just hearing too much of it for so many years and hearing it in the wrong, along with stuff that they just didn't fit with, and and hearing too much on the radio. I think there's a lot to be said for just just leaving the radio be,
Yeah.
and then taking music on its own terms. And I think if there was more of that with U2, I would feel differently about U2, because I think the quality is there. I think I think it's good stuff, especially back then, and probably mostly back then. But yeah, you have to strip away a lot of the context.
Yeah, I think I'm just overexposed to Bono. I just find him repulsive as a person. But I didn't always feel that way. I've loved their stuff many, many years. I just don't listen to it that much anymore. And when I listen to it, it just doesn't blow me away like it used to. Maybe I just need a break. I don't know. We'll see. Up next, I am going to go with a band that I can't put on the playlist because none of their stuff is on Spotify, and it drives me nuts. But the Fatima Mansions, or the Fatima Mansions, I believe they also referred to here in the U.S. They're from Cork, I believe. They made a bunch of records, but the one that really stuck with me was Viva Dead Ponies, which had the fantastic song based on the Margaret Thatcher quote, I believe. I believe Margaret Thatcher once said, "Only losers take the bus." So I love the song "Only Losers Take the Bus" by the Fatima Mansions, but they're real heavy hitter on that album, and one of the great, just like hard. It wasn't like shoegaze was around in the early 90s. It was still getting some play, and My Bloody Valentine was getting some play, and Fatima Mansion just came out and just four on the floor, just blasted that stuff. And Blues for Ceausescu, which is the first single, and especially in light of the way the world has turned out, it's very prescient, shall I say, like foreshadows a little bit of the Jimmy Savile stuff before that was openly discussed. So Fatima Mansions were angry as hell, and they just they struck gold, in my opinion, on Viva Dead Ponies, the album. Used copies are everywhere if you look online, but you almost never see this band in the record stores anymore. So you're pretty much going to have to dig them up online. I think most of the videos and stuff are on YouTube, but the one you want is the album version of Blues for Ceausescu from the Fatima Mansions. They were awesome.
and might be the first, I'm certain it's the first and probably the last Jimmy Savile mention.
Okay. But look, like John, I was almost going to include Johnny Rotten or a Public Image Limited song on this list because he's basically Irish Catholic that grew up, like John Lydon was pilloried, but there are interviews with him from like 79 and 80s talking about Jimmy Savile being a perv.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it was known. It was known. And I suspect that based on some of the lyrics in Blues for Ceausescu, that he might have known that it might have been more widely known. I'll put it that way.
You know what's disturbing? Like you want to know more about what was going on there. There's a clip I saw on YouTube of an old show where they were I think it was kind of like an It's Your Life type of show, where they had Gary Glitter on it, and they bring on like Roald Dahl's daughter to talk about, like she was talking about how things that she did with Gary Glitter when she was a kid.
Wow.
And he puts his finger up to his mouth like to say, no, don't say what you're about to say, which she doesn't actually come out and say anything, but you can tell like he was worried about what she was about to say about him. And you really like, it's disturbing. It's just completely disturbing.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue.
Yeah.
You're up.
Okay. On that note, okay. So here's the part where I have Van Morrison on my list, I guess.
Right.
So I wasn't really sure which way I was going to go with the Van Morrison song. There were quite a few. I even thought so. Like I thought about Sweet Thing. I was originally going to have that, and I actually almost put Domino on my list. But coming out of Where the Streets Have No Name, I kind of felt like that would be a good place to go into the Mystic, I guess. So I went with Into the Mystic for Moondance.
Yeah.
That is, I think that's definitely one of his strongest songs.
Oh yeah.
And really, really worked coming out of Where the Streets Have No Name.
Yes, I see your point. Can't argue with that. I think that I'm a little burned out on that song myself, but it is a beautiful sounding record too. That's one thing you got to say for Van the Man is, particularly those old Warner Brothers records, they just sound wonderful. They just sound beautiful.
Yeah.
I dig them. All right, can't argue with that. Next up for me, I'm going to go with the Waterboys, Whole of the Moon. One of my all-time favorites. And there's quite a bit of Waterboys stuff that I remember when Hold of the Moon came out, I loved it. And I bought a compilation of theirs, and I didn't really bond with it. And I sort of just stuck really only with Hold of the Moon. I started going back a few years ago, and I just was too young to hear it, I think. Just how great the Waterboys are. And they have great taste in covers, too. That's another dead giveaway of how good a band is they generally do pretty good covers. But I almost picked This Is the Sea, but I couldn't avoid Whole of the Moon. And I realized by giving you Waterboys that I'm ceding the ability to pick first among the World Party songs. But I got Hold of the Moon, and I'll take it.
Yeah, that is one where I think it is safe to say that I'm kicking myself in the ass a little bit to not have the Waterboys on my
I will
list.
give you a Waterboys if I can have an MBV. So if you want to grab a Waterboys cut for your list, I will take an MBV for My Bloody Valentine for mine.
Well, you can do that anyway.
All right, fine.
It's a free goddamn country.
So far.
Yeah, to this point.
Nominally. All righty, it's up. You're up.
Okay.
I have one more. I hope you don't have more. How many more do you have? Because I only have one heavy hitter left.
I have one more. You mentioned World Party, and then you got me nervous because I thought I was wrong about something. But yeah, I mean, that's Wales.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I thought they were the Waterboys, weren't they?
Yeah, they're, well, let me see. So
the World Party spins off from the Waterboys.
Yeah, World Party kind of, but World Party is kind of Carl Wallinger. Is that?
Yeah, but he was in Waterboys, I think. It doesn't matter.
No, he wasn't. He was not.
All right, if you pick, if you're gonna pick, we can't pick World Party then. So grab a Waterboys.
Well, I'm just gonna go with what I had originally.
All right.
So anyway, I had the Cranberries. That's the last song on my list. And then my penultimate song, a band called the Saw Doctors from Galway, from their album If This Is Rock and Roll, I Want My Old Job Back. 1991 was the year, and the song's called N17.
I do not know that. I'm going to have to look that one up.
Yeah, that one takes a little bit more digging. You know what? Another. So you got one more, and then I'll just kind of mention a couple of other things that maybe could have made the list.
Sure. I'm going to pick my last one. I got to give a little love to Sinead O'Connor. And while I have to pick Nothing Compares to You, because that's like a human achievement, that is another one of those things that we should send in spacecraft out into the universe so that they'll like us when we arrive later. Like Nothing Compares to You is great, but to reduce her down only to that is criminal. She has done. I have never heard a bad album by her. I'd say her catalog could be a little bit all over the place. But if you spend time with it, it does all, there is a continuity to it. It does all make sense ultimately. But her first two records are really, really good. And she's done, it's not on Spotify, but she did an album of all reggae covers that I thought was fantastic too. She does a bunch of duets that are great. Visions of You with Jah Wobble is one of my all-time favorites. So Sinead takes a lot of shit because she's provocative, and I think she sometimes gets over her skis. Like I don't think she has a bad heart at all. I think she's a sensitive person with some baggage and an incredible talent. And you can't say, in spite of all of it, that she didn't like do something with it. Like she did. She occupies a piece of real estate that like nobody else is really on, and I guess that's a mixed blessing. But she's one of a kind, and I mean that almost exclusively in like a good way. Nothing Compares to You is a great song. It's a great performance. It's like I don't need to talk about that, but I love Sinead O'Connor. Troy, Mandinka, Stretched Out on Your Grave, Emperor's New Clothes, Success Has Made a Failure of Our Home. She does a cover of Elton John's Sacrifice that's really good. Really good. My Special Child's good. She just had a lot of great songs, and I think she just takes a lot of shit, and she shouldn't have to. You got to make room for people. She's got a big personality, and it doesn't always make her look great. But her music is always pretty great, and she deserves a benefit of the doubt, in my humble opinion.
And I feel, I mean, not quite as strongly, but I agree. And it was kind of hard to get her into my list because I certainly couldn't put Nothing Compares to You on my list because that would have been like, that would have been really the only true downer on my list.
Yeah.
So that might be a next year sort of thing. Next St. Patrick's Day for me for Sinead. But
I'm with it.
Pick. I can fault you on the Waterboys though because they are from Edinburgh, Scotland.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Look, they're Celtic. Come on.
They are Celtic. Yeah.
Let me have it. Let me have it. Just let me have it. I can't tell the difference. I am Scots Irish is not the same as being Scottish or being Irish, from what I understand. So I don't want to necessarily go around claiming I'm Scottish and Irish if I'm just Scots Irish. But
yeah.
Look, they're gonna have to get along. That's it. Like I guess that's just how it's got to be. I'm leaving it up there.
Okay, so for the Celtic aspect of it, then
yeah. Well, then I'm going to take the Proclaimers too. But anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So anyway, a couple of things that maybe could have made my list as well as Sinead O'Connor, but maybe not the Waterboys. Now that we. But anyway, certainly. When we do our Scottish list, we'll have to find a Scottish holiday to do a playlist for.
Yeah.
Or some occasion. But anyway, Glenn Hansard also is a notable artist that definitely could have made my list, but I just didn't really have the song to fit in with it. And Glenn Hansard adjacent, I guess. The Commitments was a pretty good movie. And what's that?
Don't you dare.
What, you don't like The Commitments?
All right, fine, whatever.
Well, anyway, there were maybe a couple of things in the Commitment soundtrack that could have made the list as well. But yeah, I think I know where you're going with that, and that's kind of why I didn't make my list. But I felt like I'll mention it.
That's a reach.
Yeah, maybe, but
I insist on putting a House of Pain in there, so I'm not complaining about your reach.
yeah, exactly. I can always invoke the House of Pain card.
Wait, are you Everlast shaming me?
There's nothing against Everlast.
All right.
Nothing against Everlast whatsoever.
I know people treat House of Pain like a one-hit wonder and a joke, but that's not really fair. Because Just Another Victim, their song that they did with Helmet on the Judgment Night soundtrack, is hands down the only duet on that album that works. Like, the Judgment Night soundtrack should have been the greatest album ever. Because they paired up a hip-hop act with a heavy rock act or a heavy metal act. Almost all of it's terrible and unlistenable, except for House of Pain and Helmet's Just Another Victim, which is still a motherfucker of a song. Come on. I'm putting that on. I am putting that on our In Rotation playlist, and I do not mean it even with the slightest amount of irony. It's great. It's great.
Well, again, it's more the fratty reception of Jump Around that is the thing. By the way, though, it's not all heavy metal bands on that Judgment Night soundtrack. You have Mudhoney and Dinosaur Jr., Sonic Youth, Teenage Fan Club.
But you got to admit, it almost all sucks.
Yeah, it's a much better concept than Execution.
All right.
It's one of those things that when you see it, when you see like the lineup on it, you're really intrigued by it, but yeah, it doesn't turn out to be. It really doesn't turn out to be what you hope it's going to be.
Yeah. All right. I accept. I rest.
Yeah.
I am not going to add or supplement my list. I had a couple questionable ones. I like the Dubliners version of Whiskey in the Jar. Let me just rep that for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
And, I wanted to. I think you could make a case. Maybe, you know what? I'm not even going to go down this road. I'm going to take penance right now for I have to apologize for getting the Waterboys wrong. Because first of all, it totally nerfs me enjoying the Scottish show because I'll be feeling guilt. Although the Scottish show is way more competitive, isn't it? Because you got Belle and Sebastian, Teenage Fan Club, Jesus and Mary Chain, Camera Obscura, Frightened Rabbit. There's tons and tons of great Scottish records in the last 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
Tons.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't think we did bad with Ireland whatsoever. I mean, there was plenty of great stuff here.
Yeah, there's no Psycho Candy though.
Well, no Teenage Fan Club either, but
Scotland produced Psycho Candy. Like that you cannot take away from them, no matter what. No, I don't know who else could have. I don't think it's a coincidence. That's anyway. Apologies to the Waterboys and Ireland.
Yeah, we'll find some occasion to do a Scotland show.
Yeah, I'm down with that. Are you a fan of do you love which version of Gloria do you like best? The Doors, the Shadows of Night, or them? Do you have a preference?
Oh, so you're not even going to mention the Hendrix version?
Yeah, I don't think that's not the same thing.
Why is that not the same thing?
It didn't chart as a single.
And all the other ones did?
They definitely did. The Doors one was reissued on like a greatest hits record, and it charted then. The Doors version of it was released as a single, like during like a reissue in the 80s or something. So they all three had been a single.
Okay.
We
Well,
played Shadows of Night. I played the Shadows of Night one version. That was the one that was most often requested on the radio, but I was on the radio in the Midwest. So, of course, Shadows of Night being from Chicago, that would be the one everybody would ask for, probably.
yeah. I think if I got to pick one, I'd probably go with the them version.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with you. The vocal performance is unbelievable. If nothing else, them's version of Gloria, and I believe he wrote it, didn't he? Or is it old? I should probably know that. I don't. If he wrote it and gave that vocal performance, holy crap. If only there was a device I could use.
Yeah,
to
if
look
only. Yeah, it was written by Van Morrison.
Oh, crap. All right, well, score an additional one for him, because that is one of the great rock and roll songs. That's pretty amazing. He did write one of the great rock and roll songs of all time. Brown Eyed Girl is one of the great pop songs of all time, and I think you could make a case that Astral Weeks is like one of the greatest folk albums of all time. It's pretty incredible.
So I think what you're saying is today we learned a little bit about Van Morrison, and in turn we learned a little bit about ourselves.
That's humiliating, but I deserve it. All right, what are we doing next week?
We doing the Beatle solo draft?
Yes, we are. We are. But I think we've already had a little bit of a text tussle about the rules. We're going to have. Yeah, I think so.
Well, I thought we did agree on it.
Well, we'll have to take this up. I'll put the discussion in abeyance, but as I started game planning my list, I needed to. I feel like we need to be allowed to include guest appearances as a part of the solo career.
Okay, so if you can do so without showing your hand, give me an example of one.
Here's one that I didn't pick but could have. Come and Get It by Badfinger is a solo Paul McCartney record. I don't even think it's a Lennon-McCartney song. I think it's just a McCartney writing credit. Oh, if only there was a device.
Yeah, it's a writing credit, but I would think it would have to be something more substantially related to Paul than just a songwriting credit and playing.
You can't remember. I mean, it sounds exactly like Paul McCartney. Like it sounds exactly like Paul McCartney. But it is Badfinger though.
Like I would say, I don't know if this is in any way where you're going with it. If you want to say like Traveling Wilburys for George.
Yeah, I definitely want that for sure.
Yeah,
I definitely want that.
That I think is a fair call.
All right, and then how about any Badfinger?
Well, I don't know of any Badfinger song that you would say is George on the same level. What's
George
that?
Harrison's contribution, though? If you're talking about highlights of solo Beatles career, some of that slide work from George Harrison's off limits.
Yeah, because he's not really singing on it. He's not really. I would say you got to sing on it, at least.
All right, I can accept that. I'll accept that.
I would say you should sing on it and have a songwriting credit on it at the very least. On the same thing, like a song where somebody has a songwriting credit and they sing on it.
Yeah, but that's screwed. So then you have to make a covers exception for Ringo.
Well, I was going to talk to you about this. I think we have to have at least two Ringo songs, probably where he has a songwriting credit, although I have to do a little bit more research to see which songs he actually does have a songwriting credit on. So that might be a work in progress. The Ringo rules the Ringo rules, as we will term them, that might take a little work.
Well, Richard Starkey and George Harrison are co-writers of Photograph, and that to me throws. So that does get included then, because he has at least a writing credit.
Well, that would be included in any case.
All right. Ringo, you have to let me. Look, I'm just going to come out and say it. I am taking You're 16 by Ringo, no matter what the rules are. You feel me?
Okay. Calm down.
All right.
Okay, so anyway, if your name is the name on the song, like that supersedes all other rules. But if your name isn't the name on the track, like the album and the single and whatever, then that's where the songwriting and singing rules come into play.
All right, I can accept that. I think I've had to show too much of my hand here already, but I'm just gonna have to battle it out. We're just gonna have to get nasty. That's it.
Yeah,
it's what it is.
It's not going to be pretty. It's a Beatles solo draft. There's going to be it's going to get better. It's,
as the history hyenas say, that's what it is.
That's what it is.
I think that's what they say. All right, solo Beatles draft next week. There's a lot of, I don't know. We'll have to do a full rule recap before we do it, because it's going to get nasty. And the ghost of Johnny Cochran's already hovering over this episode, and I don't want him to come back to the next one.
So we get a Jimmy Savile and a Johnny Cochran reference.
I'm here for you. All right, we'll see y'all next week.
Later.